the Azure Cafe, the Azure Marketplace Cafe. We've done this since, gosh, Sean, you're one of my old friends and valued friends, probably since 2011. And the purpose of this is to educate you, to bring some market trends. The cafe is a time for us to get together and learn some key value solutions in the Azure Marketplace. And today, I'm super happy to have one of my favorites, I guess I would say. I've been working with Looker. Looker is a visual data analytics solution. I call it something like if you have data and you need the visualization on steroids, Looker is a great solution. And most importantly, what I see the value of Looker today in the market is that they deliver self-service analytics. And a lot of companies that have a lot of data and or on Azure, they just want to start building self-service solutions. So we have a lot to cover. I have with me today is one of our Azure Data Solution Architects, Mark Cromer, and he focuses just on data and data science and science that focus on Azure. Also, Marty. Marty is our ISV lead, and her main focus is around the Azure Marketplace. So any questions, any suggestions on topics you want to cover on these cafes, just let Marty and I know, and we'll get it on the menu. So we're going to cover a lot with Looker, and we have Norris. Norris is the Director of Technology Alliances for Looker, and he's going to give you a quick overview of Looker, where it began and where it is today. And then Erin is going to give you some Azure in action of Looker and showing you right from the marketplace how you can spin it up, try it, and see if it fits your needs and your requirements today. So the menu, we really started out with the appetizers, and that's going to be talking around the market trends. We go into the main course. That's where Erin is going to give you real live demos. And then to the theme of the cafe is we'll finish it up with a little dessert. So sit back, relax. I'm sure you're all hungry, so if you want to get something small to eat, keep your mics on mute, please. And if you have any questions, please post them in the IM window, and we will answer them directly. So thanks again, and please give us your feedback. We always look forward to hearing from you. So Marty, I'll hand it off to you to take it from here.
Okay, and actually maybe we could just go back a couple of slides because I did want to point out that this is the third in a series that we had on big data. So when we send you the follow-up email from this event, you will have a link, and if you're interested, you can watch our earlier two events, which were both great, with Hortonworks and DataStax. And I also wanted to call out my email address on the bottom of this slide because, as Joan mentioned, we are planning our next series. So we're probably going to take the summer months off because everybody likes to have their vacation. So we'll be starting back hopefully in August. So if you have feedback and ideas on ISVs that you would like to see or solutions from the Azure Marketplace, we'd love to hear those. And so you can just send that to me. And so now you can advance along. I think we're going to turn it over to the chef for our appetizer, and that's Mark Cromer.
Now, I think we lost Mark, so I can, I guess, step in here for him until he gets back. So we talked a little bit about the market trends and the data analytics, and I can speak to a lot of what I see right now where customers, what you have to keep in mind when you look at data and data modernization is customers today are looking at data analytics to modernize and monetize. And when you think about monetizing it, how do you take the data intelligence you have today, visualize it, whether it's big data, whether it's IoT, how do you deliver that as a self-service model? The trends today, and every one of my customers that I'm working with, and I can call out a few. One that probably everyone knows is AccuWeather. They're a very, very legacy company, but over the last several years we've been working with them, and they're right now moving into a data analytics to modernize and monetize their weather forecast, and what we call that is a self-service model. So if you think about Microsoft and our big data strategy, it's intelligent data for everyone. So most importantly, you have to be looking at your data on how you can take that and change the way you do business. Another scenario is an insurance company. It's been around 100 years. They're looking at their current data. It's very disparate, very in different silos of data. We're moving it to a data warehouse. And then what we're building as a start is dashboards. Dashboards internally to keep the internal customer and the CEOs knowledgeable of their insurance policies, where their business is coming from. But from that dashboard with business analytics delivered to them in a what we call dashboard dials of health index of their business, we're then taking that framework and we're delivering that to their brokers, so we can externalize that visualized experience to their brokers and to their agents, so they can get more real-time information. So that's what I'm seeing from a weather forecasting organization with a lot of data, terabytes and petabytes of data, to insurance companies, to restaurant chains that they're using big data, Power BI, and Looker to build that customized, visualized view.
Hey, Joan, this is Mark. Sorry
ahead,
about that.
Mark.
I was kicked off, and I just was able to get back in. So
Go ahead.
nicely done. So let me pick it up from there, from where you were. Just to kind of sort of summarize what we wanted to do today, and I'll just take maybe 5 minutes at most, so I can hand off to Looker here. But this is Mark Cromer, a data solution architect here in the East region for Microsoft on the Azure team. And what I just wanted to do was just kind of do some more of the level setting, like sounds like Joan was doing a great job of doing. But where we are in terms of this whole series of webinars that we do around our ISV marketplace within Azure, and we really get excited by this because we get a chance to bring in our partners, our other software vendors who do a great job of putting cloud-based solutions out into our marketplace that you can spin up very quickly and that you can use to build big data and any kind of data solution within Microsoft Azure. And the previous ones we'd kind of built up from the bottom up. We had Hortonworks in here talking about the Hadoop data platform in terms of storing petabytes of data and being able to analyze it within that platform. We had DataStax in here last time as one of our guest chefs. And they were talking a lot about NoSQL databases and the different ways that you can leverage that for quickly storing and retrieving data. And now we've moved up into the the business analytics side of things with Looker as our guest chef today. And just the three main areas that I want to get across in this slide is just that we're providing this whole set of data insights and data analytics that can be leveraged across your environment and across your enterprise, that take into account many different things that we see in the Microsoft Azure data field team, which is there's a lot of data variety out there, a lot of different sources from the NoSQL and Hadoop that I mentioned to the traditional relational databases. Intelligence for everyone, this whole idea of self-service and democratization of analytics, so that it's not just any longer a something for a very small sliver of your organization. Your entire company should be able to benefit from making data-driven decisions, and our partners like Looker help you to achieve that in Azure. And lastly is the idea of compelling visualizations. And we've always thought of in the data analytics world, where I've been for many years, we've always thought of visualizations as just a way to just do fancy pie charts or graphs or whatever it may be. But the real interesting thing about that is that can really draw in people within your organization who don't typically get very involved with analytics because they may find that a little bit too, too intimidating. But by drawing them into very compelling data visualizations, helps to spread that idea of democratizing analytics within your organization. So these are the three key pillars that we're talking about here with Looker today. Okay, Norris, if you go to the next slide, that'd be awesome. Yeah, thank you. So in general, we've talked about these three pillars within cloud data demands throughout this series. So as I finish up your appetizer here, I just want to put these across again to you to keep in mind. The idea of cloud-based data solutions, including data analytics like we're talking about today, is the idea of leveraging scale for compute and storage resources within Azure, the idea of bottomless storage, the idea of being able to auto-scale your compute resources, very key when you think about an Azure cloud-based data solution. The speed of deployment, you're going to see from Looker today, they're going to show you their marketplace ISV, the marketplace image that you can quickly spin up a solution template to have Looker up and running within a matter of minutes within your environment. And then lastly is this idea that we've been talking about of polyglot environments where at the top end of this pyramid of data goodness, of data value, sits a tool like Looker where you can then leverage the intelligence coming from your different data environments that serve different purposes, your hot data, your cold data, your NoSQL, your SQL Server, your Hadoop environments, and bring those together so that at the end of the day, your business is making better decisions. That's the key value prop of tools like this. Okay, last slide here for me, Norris. Awesome. So I'm about ready to hand off to our guest chefs today. Before I do, I just kind of want to remind you that we're talking about the Microsoft Azure Marketplace in this series. You can go to and you can just Bing or Google any of these different partners that we have in the marketplace to look for details of their solution. This is actually a look at many different sort of data analytics and business analytics products that are available to you to spin up very quickly within Azure. And again, because this is cloud-based, this is Azure, when I say spin up, also you can pause these, you can spin them down, so the whole idea of elastic scale is available to you. In this case, Looker is going to show you how you get started with their solution. And with that, I'm gonna hand it off to Norris from Looker and enjoy the rest of the meal.
Thank you very much, Mark, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I just wanted to take a few minutes. We want to make the meat and potatoes of this presentation the actual demo of the product, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of kind of what Looker's mission is and where we're in the marketplace. So at the highest level, Looker's mission is to make it easy for everyone to find, explore, and understand the data that drives your business. The customers that we work with, span the gamut across industries. We're a horizontal solution. Anywhere from venture-backed technology companies to enterprise and mid-market companies such as Sony, Intel, Autodesk, Yahoo, Kohler, etc. What all these companies have in common is that when they come to us, they typically have one of two data experiences that kind of touch on the themes that Mark has mentioned earlier. The first one is one that we call at Looker data bottlenecks, and it's a concept of with kind of legacy monolithic BI solutions, you centralize your data in one place. On premise or in the cloud, and you have a way of getting to that data. The data is manicured and cubed, but working with the data and creating reports that drive business value are only available to a subset of the company. Usually, maybe only the BI team, analysts, data engineers, or people that have taken special training to learn the tool to work with. And everyone else kind of gets in a queue and asks when they have a business question related to their jobs or a project that they're working on. They get in line to ask a question. They wait for a report to be produced. Can take a few hours, can take a few days. If they have any follow-up questions or which you often do, or you have a new question you want to ask, you get kind of in the back of that queue again. And what we see is that it really limits not just the number of questions that you can ask, but the speed of getting your questions answered and being able to move forward with a data-driven decision. And so we've seen then that was kind of the BI landscape version 1. In response to these big monolithic solutions, there are now products in the market that address a subset of that data and trying to create a way to self-serve visualizations and create quick reports based off of files or Excel reports. And that's what we call data chaos at Looker. What it really means is that from going from a monolithic solution like that, where it would take months to create a data model that you would be able to consume in the enterprise, they said let's just tear it down. Let's create let's give everybody the ability to visualize their own data. And that works really well with small teams working with small data sets. Perhaps you want to create a quick few interactive charts off of an Excel spreadsheet. But it really kind of breaks down when you're working with complex data that's changing very quickly. The schema of that data is changing or needs to be changed very often. And it's coming from a variety of sources, as in this day and age, it does come from a variety of SaaS applications, databases, and files, as Mark mentioned. And in that case, you really need a way to a layer in the BI solution that would unify all of those data sources, create a single description of all of the dimensions and metrics that exist in that data, so that they can be then consumed by the end user. So what we're really looking for here is a way to balance kind of standards and governance on one side, so that you can trust the data that you're working with, and that everyone in the enterprise is working off of the same definitions of revenue or gross margin or customer lifetime value or whatever it is that's important to you. And on the other side, having a solution that's easy enough to use and that you can work with it yourself and create reports on the fly and explore your data without having to go to somebody else for that. And that's what we're really building here at Looker. The way we do this is Looker connects to any SQL database directly, and we'll talk about how we leverage the database. It has a layer that is a modeling layer to create standards around the data, define all the business logic within your enterprise. Then it allows you to explore that data in a very click and drop interface that we'll show you in the demo, so that business users can drill into the data and create insights directly, which then obviously fosters a data culture where everyone can answer their own questions in a timely manner and make data-driven decisions. I want to touch on just the 3 technical pillars that make this possible. So the first one is that Looker is 100% in database. What that means is we don't move any data out of the underlying database. We don't store any data in Looker. Looker is a web application that sits directly on top of your database, whether that's a relational database like SQL Server, a massively parallel processing database like a SQL Data Warehouse, or a Hadoop environment on HD Insight or something. We sit on top of that database or cluster directly and push all the computations down to that database. So essentially you're writing SQL on the back end and executing against the database and rendering results in the browser. That obviously wasn't possible 10 years ago because the data stack that was needed to performantly query large sets of data was prohibitively expensive to most enterprises. But today, with solutions on Azure, that's quickly changing, and even the smallest businesses can invest in this infrastructure and scale it as their business grows. That's the second thing about Looker. So the LookML, which stands for Looker Modeling Language, is a semantic modeling layer that you can use to describe. You're connecting to all the raw data in your business, so you need a way to describe all the business logic and define the metrics that you can then give business users to use and reuse. And that's what makes Looker really easy to use for the business user. And the third thing is that Looker is completely web-based, so there's no desktop client. You're interacting with Looker via the browser, and every report that you create, we call them looks. At Looker, every look that you create is a unique URL that you can easily share with anyone. Anyone that has access to Looker can just grab that URL and see what you wanted them to see. And in addition, everything is easily embeddable. Because Looker is a web application, you can iframe any part of Looker or use our API to serve data, not just for internal analytics, but for analytics to your customers, vendors, partners, etc. Just wanted to highlight some use cases that we've seen across our customer base. We really focus on getting data to everyone in the organization and making that the way that they do their business and that they do their job. So anything from operational analytics, sales funnels, sales efficiency, embedding analytics, as I said, into third-party apps and creating net new products that Looker is powering in the background. All of that is very easily possible now. So with that, I wanted to add one more thing. So Looker for Azure, it's really easily deployable on Azure. And as I mentioned before, we're focusing a lot on databases, but we actually support not just SQL Server, but SQL Database, SQL Data Warehouse, and HD Insight. So across the big data products on Azure. And with that, I'll pass it over to Aaron, who's our senior sales engineer on the Alliances team, who will take you guys through an interactive demo of Looker. So I think I'll just stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, can you all hear me and see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So I'm just starting with the listing on the Azure Marketplace for Looker. Just demonstrate that you can just create a VM just from the listing here based on the number of users that you'd like to have named on your application. So once that's deployed, I'll just go through a demo of what that application looks like in this other tab here. So Looker is a web application, so you just access it via the browser on whatever device or whatever browser that you'd like. I'm going to authenticate with Google here, but we offer a bunch of different types of authentication options, including LDAP or just email authentication. So when you log into Looker, you'll see the different sections of the application are listed on the left-hand side. So the section that we're currently in is called Spaces. This is the content management piece of Looker. So this is where you'd organize your reports, which we call looks in Looker, as well as your dashboards, which are our collection of those looks in one place. And so you can create, spaces and spaces within spaces. Really, it's just a folder hierarchy structure for organizing the content that you create in Explore, which is the next section down. So Explore is the manifestation of the LookML modeling layer in a click and drop interface where you can build your tables, your visualizations, do your ad hoc exploration, ultimately save those, share it, add to dashboards and things like that. The modeling layer itself is within the application, so we have an IDE that'll help you build that. LookML is really just an abstraction of SQL. So as Norris mentioned, we do all transformation in database via SQL. So we're not going to move the data anywhere. We don't have an intermediary database layer. We do any transformation. That'll all be done on the backend database, and just the results are returned to the browser. So we have a SQL runner tool built in to just help building out that model and doing any testing you might need just to make things easier. And in the admin section, you'd have all your standard administrative functionality like user management, role management, permissioning, security, but that's also where you would establish your database connection. So we establish database connections via JDBC. So if we were to add a new database connection, you'd see you just enter the parameters for the database connection. If we open up the dialect window, you can see all of the databases that we support. So that's going to include, Microsoft Azure SQL Data Warehouse, SQL Database, SQL Server, Spark, and Hive. So really, as long as we can write robust enough SQL to an endpoint, and we can support it, and so you would just connect that way, and then you get ready to, start your project just by connecting that database there. And just to show you how easy that is, I'm just going to go ahead and build a LookML project from scratch just by clicking New LookML Project. I'm just going to call this Test just to demonstrate how this works. I'm going to select the Look Redshift, which is just a simple e-commerce data set, which should just give us an idea of how this works, and click Create Project. So when I create a LookML project, what's going to happen is the generator is going to be the information schema of the underlying database and then give us a starting point for our model. So LookML model is really just a collection of files that are managed via Git for version control, as well as co-development. So as a developer, I get started with a model file, which is where I define my explorers, which are the tables in the database, as well as inferred join relationships between other tables in the database. So I could modify those. I could add in others that the generator didn't pick up. Any join relationship in SQL is possible in Looker. And in the view files is where we define our dimensions and measures. And so these can be a combination of just referencing the underlying columns of the tables, as well as doing any sorts of transformations that we might need. So by default, we'll have a dimension for every column. We'll have a measure of a count. And then we would build on these dimensions and measures to add in our sums, our averages, min, maxes, case statements to adding categories, building out timestamps into timeframes. So using a combination of both SQL and LookML functions to build out all of the metrics that we need from our model. So out of the box, if we go to Explore Order Items, which is that interface where we would be building our reports and doing our exploration, we can see the 5 tables that were part of that Explorer. So simply, if I wanted to, grab the count of order items, just select count. I can see that the SQL that Looker is writing is just, the count star from that table, and it knows how to do that for us. And when I click Run, that query executes to the backend database, and just the result is returned in the browser. So we haven't moved the data anywhere. And then as we make this report more complicated, maybe we add orders created date. We filter on the last 7 days. We can now see the SQL is going to change to add in that other table, to left join it, to apply the filter using the where clause, and then is also apply a date transformation for us. So when we click Run, the same thing happens. The query executes to the back end, and just the result gets returned to the browser. And then we could easily visualize that data just by clicking this visualization bar, and we could choose the visualization type that we'd like to see. What I'll do now is go into a built-out version of this model, including this e-commerce data as well as some web analytics data, some web traffic data from the e-commerce company, by going back to Spaces and going into a built-out dashboard in the web analytics space. So once you've configured your model to get all the metrics that you'd like out of it, you can see the end result could be a dashboard. So we can see the types of visualizations that are available here. We use the D3 visualization library, so a bunch of those types are built in. They're meant to be interactive, so you can toggle legend values on and off. We also have zoomable and pannable maps built in, so you can use those for geospatial analysis. And then if you have very specific visualization needs, you can also bring in your own JavaScript visualizations as well, and we have documentation on how to configure those to work with Looker. Because Looker is a web application, it's really easy for us to link out to other content either within Looker itself or external to Looker on other web pages. So if we take a look at this most popular brands table and we want to learn more about one of the brands, maybe Allegra K, we can click on what we call a drill menu. So we can drill further into the data about Allegra K, look at category information, item names, just filter on that brand, or we can also link out to their website, Facebook page, or just another dashboard in Looker that has a brand name filter. So in this case, we're going to look at a dashboard that's filter on this brand that we selected just to get more information about it. So it's really easy to just jump around to content that might be relevant to the user, depending on what you've created. And then lastly, the dashboard says filters, so you can change the filter values. You can see here this has been defaulted for the past 7 days. We could easily use the different types of filtering options to get down to the date granularity we might be interested in. We can also have field filters, and those will auto-complete to the values of the field. So in this case, maybe we only want to look at email traffic. We could select that email traffic to the website, click Run, and then any element that is listening to that filter will update accordingly. And the dashboard is really meant to be a starting point for exploration, and you can drill into any of these elements to modify them, change them, or just see how they were constructed from the modeling layer and explore. And you can do that just by clicking on a point to learn more information about it, or just clicking on the title of an element. And in that case, you would see both the data, the visualization, and the dimensions and measures that were selected and filtered on. So here we can see the table, so the start date, the session count, the overall conversion, the visualization that was in the dashboard, and then if we open up the left pane, we can see all of the dimensions and measures that are available to us from what we are currently exploring in this web session data. So it's easy for us to modify this report. We can add something like cart to checkout conversion to the table. We would see, similar to how we did before, the SQL will just update based on that definition. And when we click Run, the SQL will just execute in that visualization update for us. A lot of times you'd come into Looker just starting from scratch, wanting to build your own analysis. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove all the fields and filters from this report and start from scratch. So something we might be interested in is looking at the latest funnel step that a user reached. So I'm going to select furthest funnel step to add into my report. I might want to look at this by date, so I'll just grab date as well. I'm going to grab session start date. This is sessions for this funnel step. I'll filter on the past 10 days. So you can filter on any dimension or measure just by clicking filter next to it. And then we'll look at the count of sessions that reached each funnel step by selecting just the session count here. We can also pivot on any dimension just by clicking pivot next to the dimension name, or there's also a menu within the Explorer interface that will allow you to do that. And so when I pivot a value, that brings it across the top, similar to an Excel pivot table. And so now I should be able to see my sessions by start date by the furthest funnel step. And then I can easily visualize that data just by clicking this visualization bar. As you can see, it defaulted to a grouped column chart. I can change that to whatever type I'd like, depending on what makes sense. There's a bunch of others here, depending on the type of data that you have. In this case, I'll stick with column. I could change it from stack to stack percentage. You can change the style, so I could change the colors, for instance. I can change the value labeling, configure the X and Y axes. All of the standard visualization configuration stuff is available within this UI. So once I have a report or a look, as we call it in Looker, that I'm happy with, I can share it in a number of ways. So because Looker is a web application, I can actually just share this URL, and anyone who has access to Looker would be able to open up the same page as me. We also have a share button, which makes things a little easier by shortening that URL for us. I can also just download the physical result set. So I can do that in the format that I'd like, whether that's CSV, HTML, JSON, Markdown, TXT, or Excel. And so that would be a point-in-time data dump of that tabular result set there at the bottom. And lastly, I can also save this look, and that'll save that to Spaces. So I can save this as a test look for funnel, and I'll click Save. That'll save that to my personal space, but I can save it to any number of shared spaces depending on what made sense. And then once I've saved a look, I could go back to Spaces. I could access it that way. I could also add it to a dashboard. And then if I go out of dev mode here for a second, So making sure I'm in the production version of the project. I can also schedule. So make sure that the look is saved. I can schedule that look to run at the interval that I choose, and send to any number of email addresses that I like at the interval that I'd like. We can also have this format be more like an alert. So if they only send if there are results, there are no results, or the results have changed. And then we also can have it send as a webhook if that made sense as well. And then lastly, we also have the ability for looks to be made public, which brings us into a couple other sharing features. So you can just share the results of the data via URL in the format that you'd like. We also have an API, so you can surface the results from Looker to other applications if you'd like to. And so I'll show you a little bit of an embedded a demo that we call Powered by Looker. So that'll include both results from the API as well as our embed capability. So you can embed visualizations, data tables as iframes publicly, or you can also embed visualizations, data tables, dashboards, full-on Explorer experiences privately via a single sign-on integration. And then we also have a Google spreadsheet and Excel integration, so you can surface live results from the database via Looker to a spreadsheet, or if the user doesn't have access to Looker or would prefer to be there. So quickly, all of this is happening via the LookML modeling layer, which I'll just dive into quickly. So you can see here, this is the built-out version of sort of what we were looking at before, with the explorers defined based on the join relationships in the model file. And then if we hop into the view file, you'll see some more derived dimensions and measures. So in addition to just the dimensions that come from the tables directly, we'll also see some derived measures like count distinct, some built-out time frames on timestamps, as well as just some raw SQL, since at the end of the day, Looker is writing SQL to the backend database, so you're able to utilize any function of the backend database that's possible in SQL. And so that allows us to create a single set of data and definitions for business users to choose from and explore, as well as it allows us to not have to do as much upfront ETL or data transformation, since we can do it on the fly in SQL. So quickly, if you wanted to use Looker in embedded contexts, we have an embed demo as well called fashion.ly. Basically, it's taking this e-commerce data, we're logging in as a brand, and we're only going to see information that's relevant to our brand. So it's taking stuff from Looker, bringing it into its own web portal in a few different ways. So if I sign in as Allegra K, and we look at my company overview, you can see this is a demonstration of using Looker's API to surface results from Looker in this web page in how we choose. So we're looking at our featured users, their total orders this month, their most ordered product, as well as just some general metrics here in our own portal, skinned as we'd like. We also have the ability just to embed dashboards. So as we dive into the supplier overview here, you'll see that we've just embedded one of the Looker dashboards as an iframe in this web page. And you have the ability to skin embedded dashboards a little more than you would within the application itself, so you could change the background color and things like that to make them match the look and feel of your website. But overall, they would have the same sort of functionality and look and feel that they would within the application itself. And then lastly, you can do some different sorts of things with this. You can use a combination of the API and iframes. And in this case, this is a report selector, so I could select a report that I might be interested in, select the visualization and click submit, and that would pull up that specific report for us here. So using the API to grab a list of reports, selecting that report, and then modifying the URL of the iframe to show us what we'd like. So this is just showing us Looker in a different context, but still using the same backend technology. And then lastly, if you didn't want to provide a full Explorer experience to your users, but wanted to allow them to modify reports You could set up your own sort of UI for allowing users to select measures that they'd want to see. Maybe we'll just look at order count and click submit, and that should modify the report for us. And then the last one in here is just another manifestation of the API. So just showing that because we're connecting directly to the database, we don't have to aggregate the data. So we could do things like a customer profile, looking at things as granular as the orders that they've placed, and we could look up our other customers as well as we wanted to. And that's about it for the demo.
Hey, Aaron, this is Mark. I had one or two questions. One is you said that because the hey, that's my picture, nice. It said that since you're not aggregating the data, that you can do that sort of row level reporting like that. So when you do aggregate, so if I had a sum, in that model, I saw the other model, and you have different kind of aggregations in there. Is that always on the fly at just-in-time aggregation, or does it store anything in memory, or when it does an aggregation? Aaron? Did we lose Aaron?
Can you hear me now?
Hey, Aaron.
Skype just crashed on me, and now I've just... So I heard a beginning of a question.
I'll ask it real quick. I was just kind of curious because you said that the aggregations. No, you said that because you're running database queries, you could do that kind of row level reporting, if you will. You can kind of build that profile page like you had there, and so you're not really storing the aggregations. Does that mean that the aggregations are occurring just in time on the fly when I request a sum total that happens? That query is sent to the database just right at that time, or is it stored somewhere?
Yeah, so you have the ability to set up a cache within the application, so the result sets that could be cached from memory, like in an encrypted cache on Looker. But if that's not stored in the cache, then yes, we would go back to the database to grab that.
Gotcha. And so in the case of spinning up a VM in Azure on Looker, what that would do is that would have a cache on the server, on the VM, would cache those aggregations if you choose to do so.
Yes, right. So that'll just default to 5 minutes. So if someone's loaded a dashboard, like the one we were looking at, and someone loaded it 2 minutes later, we wouldn't go back to the database to fetch all those queries because it's within the caching window. You could set that to be, an hour or 2 hours, depending on how fresh you want the data to be and how much you want to hit the database. But yes, it would be stored on the server itself in an encrypted cache, but only the result set, the data itself.
Got it. The only other one that I had was when you were building those models and you pick a data source, like let's say, for example, we're going to use a SQL database as a data source. Can that model only talk to one source, or can it federate across multiple data sources? How does that work in Looker?
Right. So it would only talk to one source. So you'd have one project for each database connection. So you can connect multiple databases. So if you wanted to look at your data from SQL database and also your data from SQL data warehouse, you could connect both. But because you can't write SQL across them, we can't have them in the same project. So you could display elements from both of those data sources on the same dashboard, but they would still have to have separate projects because of the SQL constraint in Looker's architecture.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Thank you. That was it for the questions. There was one or two in the chat too. I answered those. They were around the sizing of the VMs and how those are charged. So, were there any other questions from the audience? If no questions, then I think we just want to hand back to Marty then.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. You see here my contact information, and we've also got the email address where you can reach out to the Looker team, and also some great links to resources, because I know you're going to be really excited about trying some of the things that you've seen today. We also will send you a follow-up email that will have the link to the recording and also links to the past sessions that we talked about earlier. So if you can move to the next slide, Morris. Okay, and I just wanted to remind you again that the Azure Marketplace is the place where you can go and look and find great solutions for Azure, not just big data and analytics, as we've seen in this series, but everything from security and networking to DevOps, and you will see the link there to the marketplace. So I hope you will go and explore that. And as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be starting a new series that's likely going to be infrastructure oriented, so stay tuned for that. All right, so you can move on to the next slide. One of the great ways that we have for you to check out some of the most popular solutions in the marketplace are what we call the superhuman labs. With these, you can essentially go to this website, tryazuremarketplace.com, and you can do a lab for one of the ISVs listed there on the slide. And if you make it all the way through the lab, you get either an Azure Pass or a Crazy Fly drone. And perhaps not surprisingly, I think the drone has been the popular choice. So we are going to be adding a number of labs, and this year we also hosted a series of virtual labs where we had a facilitator from the ISV walk you through a lab. So I believe we're going to be continuing with those, and so we should have a new schedule for those facilitated virtual labs as well. Okay, and I think we might have one more slide left. Okay, so thank you so much for attending today. Look for the follow-up email, and please do let us know what you'd like to see in the future. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.